I know a lot of people interested in this topic. It's a really
Mhm.
controversial
Oh,
piece.
there's Trudy.
Everyone
Hi,
who's
Trudy.
joining, welcome, welcome. We here with our superstar today. Um, she doesn't like those things. I already know.
No, just a
Um,
mom.
just a mom, yeah, but not just a mom. All moms are superheroes. So,
Mhm.
superwoman. We are super excited about tonight. In our community meeting, we will be talking about Opt-Out Broward. And in general, we'll be talking about testing, which we know a certain extent it's a really complicated conversation. Some people are advocates of testing, others are not. We are here as we were a couple of months ago, a couple of months, like a month ago, not really uh, telling you what to do, but informing you as a community member what are the options. Um, we strongly believe that at this point in time, with what is happening around the country, what is happening here in our backyard, that you should heavily consider if you are a mother or that of a parent of a third grade and up to look into the option of opting out um, uh, for the FSA. And we will tell you why, and we will make a case. Again, we have here an expert, a parent, a mom that has been through everything. Her
Yeah.
kids, we were just chit chatting before. Her kids are already grown ups, and they are some of them. One of them is going to school, and the other one is just graduating, going to the workforce. And unfortunately, COVID just hit. Still waiting to what she's going to do. But before we do anything, I want to welcome everyone. This community forum has 23 advocates. We hope that all the information you gain today, it's for you to inform other parents and other community members um, to so they could make a smart decision. Um, we want to go over the rules as we always do. You know, my educator background as I was not a teacher. So a lot of people ask me, "You were a teacher before, John?" I was not a teacher, but I was in the classroom as the director of a non-for-profit program, and I'm still a director of a non-for-profit program. I have been in the classroom. I taught kids because that's what we do in front of the kids. We're just not teachers. We always had an amazing teacher next to us to be able to teach our workshops in the classroom. Um, but I have so much experience on the educational field that I feel like I'm an educator um, by what you said by default. They said that for now. I'm gonna let just people come in. We just started, so you're not missing anything. We're gonna all go over the rules. We always have rules because rules are important. Our kids also get taught on rules when they're in the classroom and when they're in the college or in the university courses. So the biggest rule of all, it's to respect each other. We all come from different paths of thinking, different paths of the world too. We want to make sure that you respect everyone's opinion or comments. We might disagree, but we could agree to disagree, and that is the point of these conversations. Second thing, if you are joining tonight, please put yourself on mute. We will allow some time for Q&A, so we are going to let you unmute yourself and ask questions to Rosemary, which is here with us tonight. Also, as before we start, we have 1 minute before we start. We are live on Facebook, so you could. I'm going to share the link when we start the conversation, so you could share it and blast it out. If people miss because family engagements or they have to put their kids to sleep or anything else, you could share the link afterwards. Also, if you want to put on the chat where you're connecting from, what is your background, if you're a parent, if you're a student, if you're an advocate, if you're a community leader, if you are a teacher, please share it on the chat. We want to know who is joining tonight. But most importantly, before everyone shares anything on the chat, I just want to make sure that all of you know that tonight we have Rosemary Jensen, and today's her birthday. She is turning 25. Yes, 2025. And she decided to take this 1 full hour to share her knowledge with us. And as I mentioned to you before we started, I want to thank you for sharing the knowledge with us tonight because it takes No, as a Latino, I will never take off for anything. My birthday is my birthday, and I will go party and talk to my friends and be with my family and put some salsa on, make it a big celebration. But this just is a testimony of your passion for this and your passion for our community. So I wanted to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing this. I know when I wrote you on Facebook, you were like, "Oh, it's my birthday." I was like, "Okay, so we find another time." You were like, "No, it's okay. I want to share this information because it's critical." So with that, we have my name is John Moreno-Escobar. They call me JME, John Moreno-Escobar, so it's easier. We have with us Rosemarie Jensen. She is a mom, a parent, an advocate, and she has so much knowledge about this topic that we're going to discuss tonight that I'm just thrilled to have her in our community meeting tonight. So with that, let's start with what is Opt-Out Broward, how it started. You could give us some history of it, and what was your involvement. And let's start with that, and then we keep going through the conversation, Rosemary.
Okay, quickly, I'll give you everybody my background. My background is I am a master degree teacher. I taught K-1 for 11 years in Alachua County at the University of Florida here in Broward County. I was a literacy coach for teachers, and then I had kids, and then I became very active politically through PTA and those kinds of things, particularly around the time when the first, which was FCAT way back in the day, came into play as far as grading schools and the mandatory third grade retention, that kind of thing. Really kind of as a reading teacher and as a K-1 early childhood specialist, I knew all of that was bogus and wasn't based on any kind of research, but just was an arbitrary thing that we put into place. And at the time, started doing a lot of advocacy around trying to stop that because it became very clear very quickly that teachers were going to be required to teach to these tests so that schools could retain funding. And it became very clear immediately which schools would be hurt and which ones would not. And which continues to this day. These tests are used to me as a hammer to punish schools in areas where kids need more support, where teachers need more support, not less. And the goal at that time, which I said was always the goal, was to privatize public education. Fast forward a couple years, 2011, I got on a plane and flew to DC to march in the Save Our Schools March, which I thought was going to be a big turning point. And then through that, I met with educators there. I met educators from all over the country who were very concerned about the testing and also the data. Now we're 10 years later and we're talking about data collection on our kids. There was a lot of data collection that was going to be happening. Plus they were moving these tests into grading teachers. And so I partnered with like-minded individuals all over this country. We started a national group called United Opt-Out National, and our goal was to try to stop this testing nationwide. And it was really an act of civil disobedience, just to say that's where it started. Came back to Florida, and here it took on a group here also started a Florida chapter and really ran with it in the state. And that was Cindy Hamilton and Sandy Stenoff. And they started a group and I became the Broward representative. We held a United Opt-Out conference here in Fort Lauderdale and gosh, I think it was 2013. And we had people from all over who were also concerned with this. And then prior to that, what got me going was I have two children. I had one daughter who was gifted and my son was an ESC student and he was hit with the third grade retention. And as a literacy person, I knew exactly what he could do, what he was capable of, and how these tests, and that this test wasn't showing what he was capable of, and he was going to be retained. And at that point, my husband and I discovered that you could not find out what was on the test, what they missed. At the time, we knew we had a processing speed issue, so we wanted to know, did he finish the test and get things wrong, or did he just not have enough time to finish the test? And we were told, we're not going to tell you that. And at that point for me, it became very clear that these tests weren't informing anybody's instruction. They couldn't tell you anything about my son individually, really. That this was just used as a, again, as a punishment to him, as a punishment to the school. And soon it was going to be a punishment to the teacher. So it was imperative to me to really talk to parents about stopping these tests being used the way that they were used. So that's where my background is. My son never took another FSA after 3rd grade.
Well, let's talk about that, because we have a lot of new parents
Yes.
that are here in the chat. That we have
Yeah.
a lot of how you call veterans that are in the groups, and
Sure.
they have read all the incredible documents that you guys
Yes.
have. We will
Right.
share in a minute the links of the groups.
Yes.
If you're new, there is a group. There's several groups on Facebook. It's Opt-Out Broward, it's Opt-Out Orlando, and there's the National Florida. I mean, the state Florida.
Opt-Out 3rd grade, which is
3rd grade
specific for 3rd grade. And those documents are in the Opt-Out Broward pin post too.
Right. So
yeah.
you could find it there. But let's backtrack. So so you went into this movement, you did all this, and then your son was in 3rd grade.
Yep.
And what was the process that you took? So for the new parents, what is the process? Like, one, kids are telling, your principal is telling you have to come into a classroom, you have to take the test, but you're home, you'll be in school through online, and you don't want to take your son to school.
Right.
So that is a different kind of like a curveball this time around.
Right.
And we will discuss that in a minute, but what is the regular process that what you just said, which is it is a movement around, it's not that it's attached to a legislation or anything. It's something, the civil disobedience for a lot of people who's here today. This is just civil disobedience that is done through what? And Rosemarie? Through
not having your child take these tests, because what that test does is, your child is now responsible for the school grade, the teacher's salary, whether the whole school is bonused or not, whether your child is moved on or not. And no assessment, should have that much power. It's certainly one that is not close to the teacher, or that a teacher can explain to the parent. The teacher who has the child this year doesn't even see those results. Those go on, they're done in the summer. We normally don't have those back until like end of May or June. What good do they do? So
our kids get tested in April.
Yeah.
And then the tests don't come until August.
Well, no, normally they come back like in June. Normally we get the test back in June, because sometimes at that point, like when my son, and this was in 2000 and let's see, he was 5, 6, 7, 8, 2008, when they said that he would need summer school. And that's when we were saying, well, what are you going to remediate him on? Because I'm looking at all of his work he did during the year, and he was great. He had great test scores in class. He finished all his work. He did projects. So what are you remediating him on? And no one could tell us, because those tests don't specifically show don't really tell you where there's weaknesses. They just say in this group, they missed one, or this group, they missed whatever. It doesn't give you specific information. I'm not against assessment. I'm a teacher. You have to have assessments to know where children are, struggling, where they need support, where they need to just, they can just go on. Those kinds of assessments happen right in your classroom. And teachers have been doing those assessments this entire time. I know in the elementary school, they have iReady, which is a whole nother thing, but I know they've been doing the, I don't know what they call them in elementary. We call them benchmarks, but I know they're like the
iStation,
the BAS, and they've had to do those individually with all the children, 3 times this year. They have all that data already on your child. What no one tells you is the state already at this moment has determined which schools are struggling, which ones will be, be put in turnaround, which will need this. This information is already there. So to me, this year in particular, I hate him any year, but this year in particular, the teachers have been doing all the data collection already. They have all the information they have on your child. They can pull any of that data to talk about, or any of that information to talk about your child. They don't need this information this year. To me, this is, not to mention the fact that if you've kept your child home for health reasons, to send your child in is just completely, again, ridiculous. And what if your child does go in and gets COVID? Now, do you have a class action suit against the state because they needed this data? I don't know. This year for me is probably the easiest year for parents to opt out, because I've always said you have to advocate for your child, and I had to advocate for Connor over and over, but I never had any issues because his classroom work spoke for itself. So the teachers, no one ever said, no, he can't go on because he didn't take an FSA. They had all the work right there. So they could use good cause promotion. They could call it a portfolio. They could, I know in 5th grade, if I remember at Park Trails, they gave him the SAT 10, which I believe they can do that online remotely this year. Right. So
let's backtrack. I'm going to push back.
Sure.
I want to push back. I'm going to push back.
Absolutely.
Not in a counter argument, but I'm pushing back in the terms of, I'm a new parent, so I'm hearing this test, this FSA is not really evaluating the academic progress of my kid, because really the teacher already tested him several times during this semester. Sure. There's different tools. I already know, if I'm a teacher, John is at this level, Jennifer's at this level, Carlos is at this level, Maria's at this level. I know what I have to do as a teacher to get them to where they have to be.
Right.
Now, but my fear as a parent, it's, they just send me an email. They send me a letter. They're telling me, take my son, take my daughter into the building, or not taken to the building. Maybe he's already going. He's going to be, or she's going to be taking a test. What is my pushback? What are my rights? What I do now?
Well, before this year, one of the ways kids could opt out. Many of our kids did this. Now, for a couple of years, I just didn't send him. He just didn't go to school. He didn't go to school on test days. He didn't go to school on the makeup days. I didn't tell anybody. Everybody knew who I was. So no one, whatever, but he didn't. But then, in high school, what he did, if your child is going in, we called it minimally participating. So he would clock in to the test, he had to sign in, and then he would just put his head down. Or other parents would go in once they open the test booklet or whatever it is. I guess in elementary, they still do tests. He would break the seal, sign his name, and then the parents would come pick the kid up and bring them home, and they wouldn't take the test at all. There's no data, zero. There's no data on your kid. They just say no data, no information. So that's what every year I saw for Connor. It just said no data. And he, in high school, he was better. It was easy for him to go in, and even in middle school, just
there is any consequence for the parent, for the kid who is not taking the test?
The only consequence is 3rd grade. 3rd grade is the tough year because they will tell you it's mandatory retention. But that's not true, because there are other ways to decide promotion. Again, there's alternative assessments, a portfolio assessment that the school can put together, the SAT 10. There's all kinds of ways that they can force a child forward. And I think this year in particular, I don't see that the state or districts are going to punish kids for this. I really don't. I mean, other districts are already saying,
we're not
going to force, Orange County being one of them, we're not going to force parents to bring their kids in. They're just not doing it, because I think they know that could open up a can of lawsuit worms that maybe they don't want, So, again, in all other grades, there's no hard, if you fail the FSA, you are retained. If you don't take it, there's no data one way or the other. It's just, you didn't take it.
And again, I'm being the parent.
It's very hard. I'm not lying to you. This is a hard thing for parents.
It's a hard process.
Yeah.
But so my son, my family, we decided we're not sending my
Right.
kid, or we're not
Sure.
participating as a third grader.
Right.
How now I advocate for my son to get the opportunity to be assessed in a different way? What are the steps? What we could do?
In the opt-out guide, I believe you contact the
Yep.
teacher and the curriculum specialist and say, I would like alternative assessments, an alternative way to assess my child's abilities this year, in order to be promoted. And this is why it's so funny. I just cleaned out 20, I'm not even kidding you, 20 years of work. I kept everything for both kids. For that reason, if someone ever wanted to say something, I could pull it all in and go, let me show you what Connor did this year. You cannot tell me this child is not, ready to move on to the next grade. And again, it's easier in middle school. You have grades, the teachers give tests and blah, blah, blah. So it's much easier. It's very hard to, not be a rule follower. I'm a teacher. So even for me, this was always like every year, like, oh, I can't believe I have to do this again. But in the long term, it helped my son. There was no way that test was going to be used as a punishment if I allowed him to, because I knew I knew what his disability was. And so I knew that test would never show his ability to perform. His classroom teachers know exactly what he was capable of doing. And, here we are.
So right here, I am going to share with everyone the link for the Facebook group for third grade. If you are a parent and you have your kid on third grade and you are going through this, what Rosemary just mentioned, I'm stressed, I don't know what to do. I agree with everything that you guys are saying in this forum. I want to take action. What are my alternatives? You could join the group. After you join the group, there is going to be certain documents on top. They always pin on the top.
Always.
And you have access to all this.
All of them.
All of them. I'm gonna keep progressing. Now you did that on third grade. There's some really good questions in the chat I'm gonna bring up as we have the conversation. One is, what about my son finished third grade? He passed to the next level. We were able to do the assessments. There's any way that he or she could be held for going into a magnet program?
With the magnet programs, I don't, I'm not quite clear on that. Okay. I don't think they can keep you out of that, again, because it's considered, if you've been accepted to that program, they can't unaccept you because you don't have a score. And I knew plenty of kids who went into magnet programs.
Trudy has an answer, maybe.
Yeah, Trudy might have an answer.
Trudy, you want to help us here? Put your camera on. You're also one of the superstars on this movement. It's good to not know, but we are around a lot of experts, so we will use.
Yeah, I told Trudy to jump in because she would know this.
Okay. Well, Trudy is not unmuting herself. Oh,
okay, there she is.
Yeah, I'm going, but I'm not gonna do my picture right now. So
okay, it's okay.
Just whatever. All right, but yeah, a couple of things I would say back on the third grade. In Broward County, they give something called keystones, and those will be done. They may have been done partially already by some teachers. All students do them, so that's their portfolio. So they already have a portfolio that you can say, that your student went through and did these things. So you just ask about, it's called, the words are keystones. And then the other thing I would say about third grade as well, you can end up really not pushing too hard, because we have actually set precedent in this county, because we had Brandy Paternoster and her twins were part of the lawsuit, and they actually passed the twins on. The twins didn't even do iReady at the time. So those things are precedent here in Broward County. So I don't think you have to worry. And magnet programs, as Rose said, it really depends on the parent being an advocate for the child, because you want that child to end up in the program that you want. And you have already signed them up because you have to sign up for those programs in January. So if you've been accepted in those programs, if the grades are there, the grade cards, remember, you're trying to get them to count 180 days of work that your students have done. The 180 days are reflected on your report card. So as a teacher, that's really what the teacher has done all year long. And when someone might say, well, you didn't keep all of the paperwork that we needed. Well, they should have kept the paperwork. That's where the grades came from. So those kinds of things, I think, you shouldn't worry about, but you should advocate for your child.
Perfect. I guess what I'm hearing in the chat, which is there's a lot of questions now, which I love because that's why we doing these events. There is, I guess, a lot of questions around like Cambridge programs, and if kids get punished for not testing well because they in the Cambridge program here in Broward County. Unfortunately, I don't know if Rosemarie, you are familiar with Miami-Dade specifically. There is a couple of people here from Miami-Dade,
Yes.
so I will make sure that they join the group to get more information. But there is a specific question around the Cambridge, and I wanted to make sure that I get that one. It says, let's see if I find it again. I'm sorry, when it's moving really quick.
Yeah, I saw them.
You saw
I
it,
saw
yeah.
it too. I'll go back and see if I can find it.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
We need to know what level in Cambridge as well.
Right.
Right, if the person who asked the question about Cambridge could put what level, I don't know if you put it, I do apologize. There's another question while we find out one, which is, if the student doesn't take the FSA as a 4th grader, what else do they look at? Their grades? So I guess we were looking into the report cards.
Yes, anything, the report cards, again, are critical. And that's one thing I always ask as a teacher, I would look at those. And because I think by law, they have to let you know if your child isn't progressing in reading. I believe it's by
They
December.
do.
Yeah.
By December. Mhm.
So if you haven't gotten in writing that your child is not progressing in reading, then at this point, it's almost 3/4 of the year through. So they should have reported to you that there's a problem.
And then there's another question.
The 4th grade is not.
Go, Trudy. I'm sorry.
ahead.
I thought you finished.
That's okay. Go ahead.
No, there was another question in terms of, does this only impact 3rd grade promotion, or are gifted 6th graders placed into proper classes without FSA scores?
I said that, yeah, gifted any kids have an IEP, and they have a right to gifted coursework to meet their IEP. So for them to deny gifted education based on an FSA score would be denying the child a free and appropriate public education. So they're not going to do that based on an FSA score, especially when they've already taken whatever 6th grade gifted classes are. And if I remember correctly, these 6th graders that are gifted are taking geometry, walking into 6th grade. So there's no way, there's really no gifted classes other than English in middle school anyway. It's just that they're placed in more advanced classes right from 6th grade. So once they start, they're not going to give them geometry again in 7th grade. They're going to put them in whatever the next class is. And
I just noticed you were answering questions, so I thank you for that.
Yeah,
I didn't notice.
Trudy, what someone asked, does no FSA score affect placement in Cambridge advanced classes? I can tell you we've had plenty of parents in the state whose kids have never taken an FSA, who were gifted an advanced placement class, students, and they were not taken out of those. It wouldn't even make sense, because once they start on that track, they have to stay on that track. So they would not pull them out. And really, if they even tried to do that, you would just advocate really hard for them. So.
Right. And also there are Cambridge tests, and there are a lot of the specialized tests or programs do have tests, and a lot of those are being done online. So, that why would they need to have the FSA in addition to that? Because they already are being tested by the Cambridge program. So I would not think that that would be a problem. Now, if you are not in the Cambridge program yet, then you're going to have to advocate and say, look, I didn't want to send my child in because of whatever reasons you had for not sending them in. And then you say, that their advanced work shows that they should be put into the Cambridge program. And that's how you advocate for them, is because you're showing that your child's work already is proving that they belong in that program.
I really don't think this year, given the health issues, that these districts are going to push back on parents getting their kids placed where they need to be placed. I mean, given the bigger districts in the state are not, this is, again, what I would say too, this is something that's coming from this lovely man right here, Richard Corcoran. And I would be bombarding his office, and I'm going to put his number in the chat with calls to say, this is ridiculous. You are putting my child at risk by and my family by asking me to bring my son or daughter in a year where I have chosen to keep my child home. And I think the calls have to go to him. I know there's a national call to hope that, the federal government will, but at the end of the day, it's our state lawmakers who are making this decision. They can apply for a waiver. They are choosing not to. That's a choice. So
we have, yes, put the phone number, put the email. I love that. That's how we do. That's how we advocate for our rights and our kids in this particular scenario. There is another question which I believe I could answer. Oh, I feel that I'm an expert now with you two giving me all this knowledge. Should I proactively notify the school of our intent to opt out, or just don't show up? I would say just don't show up. Is this your right?
Yeah.
As a person, as a parent, if they come back and tell you that there's a makeup test, I don't know if you want to answer and said, I decided to opt out from the FSA this year. Again, I think that we all have to learn how to self-advocate for our kids and for ourselves. So I think that is part of that. And so I don't know if, Diane, that answers your question. I know there is some people from Miami-Dade, so I do apologize that we don't have all that information handy. What I could tell you is, and with this, I will transition into maybe just a couple of questions. It's that we need to, one, inform ourselves, and also if you agree with whatever that you agree upon tonight, if you agree with the opt-out of your don't, that you have enough information handy to also inform other parents that are not here tonight. Because I know that there is a lot of conversations in our groups and different places where people just don't have the information tonight. Hopefully you leave with enough ammunition to talk to your peers, other parents and other community members, and tell them, look, this is what I heard from experts about this movement, and these are the consequences. These are the ways that you could opt out from testing. Si hay algún padre de familia acá en el grupo que está tal vez perdido porque hemos hablado todo el tiempo en inglés, les pido miles de excusas. Hoy vamos a tener a un traductor, pero desafortunadamente no pudimos tenerlo. Si usted habla español, por favor escriba en el chat para poderle coger sus datos y poder hablar con ustedes en un 1-a-1 en español. Bueno, también queríamos hacer esta reunión en español, pero desafortunadamente no pudimos. And we're going to have this hopefully in also with sign language after we post it on YouTube. So we're going to have someone that's going to help us with that hopefully. And Jessica Valenzuela is here, so kudos to her. She's helping us with that after we have the recording. But Rosemary, you had a point, I guess, you wanted to make.
Yeah, I see a lot of the questions in the chat are about the EOCs and the ACEs. I have to tell you that we have never advocated opting out of the EOCs because we do know that they are 30% of the grade. However, in Broward, and I'll get that link up for you guys too. In Broward, the way they do the 30% is way less punitive than a lot of other districts. And there's a teacher in Broward who we were using the site in 2008 to figure out what our kids had to get on the EOC in order to maintain their A. So I'll put that up there here. However, I talked to Trudy and a couple other people today to find out about this and what it looks like if you don't want to send your child in for the EOCs this year, that there will be, they'll give the child an incomplete. Your child will still go on to the next course that they need to take. And there will be opportunities in the summer to go in and take that test. Maybe once everybody has vaccines and everybody feels a little more safe and, there's more, you're not as nervous. Again, you have to have the algebra credit. I'll say this again. My son did not. Now, yeah, he did take the algebra EOC. But if your child doesn't take it, they can get a concordant score in order to get credit and to graduate. So that's another thing. There's ACT and SAT scores. The other ones, the other classes, they just have to pass the class. Even though they're required to take the EOC, they don't have to pass the EOC in order to get credit. Just so you know that. It's not like you have to pass the EOC. You can have AAF, and you end up with a B. I mean, it's ridiculous. The way Broward is I have to say, Broward however they decided to do the EOC 30%, it's not quite as punitive as other districts. So let me type that link here so that everyone, my phone just died. I'll get that link for you. Was that one that I sent you today? Yeah, if you can put that link up in the chat, it's the B-Man.
Yeah.
And there's actually a calculator. So you can put your child's quarterly scores in and you can then put, well, if they got a C, what would they get? And you would know what they would end up for the year. So again.
Awesome. I'm sharing it here on the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
go ahead, Trudy.
about that. The EOCs, as I understand it, and the reason why parents worry about it is because if they're really they need that grade in order to pass the course. They want to have the child take the test as early as possible. And they did talk about this at the last school board workshop that was related to this. And they're going to have 4 makeup times. Now they will be spread out throughout the year. And that's what they do with any of the courses that in high school that students must take. They can take those at different times, but that means it's further away from when you actually took the course. So you would have to keep your child up on whatever coursework that was in order to do well if that grade was needed. So you would end up with an incomplete, and then you might get a chance in the fall as well as the summer. So I don't want everybody to think, well, if I don't want them to take it in the summer, what's going to happen? There will be other opportunities if they're in high school in particular, or probably for the civics exam, in 7th grade, I would assume, since that's, one of the courses that also you must have a grade in. That would be what I would contemplate you should do as far as your EOCs go. Thank you.
And again, like in the middle school EOC for civics, you don't have to pass it to pass the civics class. You can have 2 A's and an F and you end up with a B in the class. I did the calculations today. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So people don't have to, it's more in high school where that GPA kind of matters as far as, college. But look, I look at college, high school kids now who are going to be applying for colleges in 1 or 2 years. Boy, do they have great essays to write about. So I think there's going to be a collective all over the country, recognition that, school just, wasn't what it was for 2 years. And, grades could be wonky because of, again, for so many reasons, lack of access to Wi-Fi, families who dealt with, death in their family, food insecurity, all these things that went on, or just general anxiety about the pandemic. I think there's going to have to be some kind of, and I think there will be. I think there will be some recognition on the part of colleges when they're looking at student applications.
Some colleges already were into this movement of not accepting or not really
Absolutely.
recognizing SATs or
Right.
SATs or SATs, ACTs or SATs. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's this called the blind admissions. It's in a lot of schools where blind admissions means for some of the parents they're here. There is no look into your background, immigration status. It's all about your essay, your personal statement. Harvard has done it for already a decade, where they don't look into that for particular cases and specific individuals, and they just accept people based on their merits, meaning their potential to come to school and thrive. And a lot of schools have done this in the last couple of years. So we are really excited in the educational movement to see universities doing that, because we know you could be a CS student in high school and get into college and really find your passion and become an A student and thrive and become a great professional, a great addition to our society after college. I don't know if you're answering the question, Rosemary, about a parent that is looking how find their promotion criteria for elementary.
I'm trying to find if that's in, I'm actually looking on Broward Schools to see where that would be, because I would imagine it's on browardschools.com somewhere, but I'm trying to locate that so I can give the person.
Okay, if
exactly
we find it, what's her name? Jennifer, I think.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Janet. No,
Gibson?
Janet.
Yeah.
Janet Neta. Janet Neta was the one who asked about the promotion criteria for this year for elementary children. If we don't find it in the next 20 minutes, Janet, do not worry. We will make sure to contact you. I have your information. We will email you separately to make sure that we find that criteria for you.
Yeah, I'll get it.
We have.
You may actually have finding that in writing. You might want to again remember that, and especially in Broward County, every school, especially elementary schools, are very different in the way they handle things. And that's because of the administration or because of where the school is or whatever. But so again, work that your child has done all year, I'm sure a lot of you have kept a lot of that, since they might have been doing it at home for much of the year. So if you have records like that, even if there's a dispute over whether the child, because it really boils down to the parent going in and saying, my child is ready for this grade. So even in writing, they may say that there's an FSA score of such and such. But again, if they really don't get those FSA scores back, and I believe in the workshop I watched, they said they would get them back until sometime in July. They obviously aren't going to even know who should go to summer school if they are going to wait for the FSA scores. So it's up to the parent again to advocate for the child, because you're the ones that really make the difference in every school situation. And if you noticed on this thread, there were a lot of teachers came on and said, don't send your students. So right. A lot of teachers are very willing to work with parents who are trying to opt out.
Yeah, there is another question, and this I'm going to open it for Rosemary and Trudy to help me here. It says, I have a 10th grader who I have opt out from FSA for the past 5 years. This year it's the states that just like third, it's mandated on an order for her to graduate. Was told she can just take the SAT, but let's say she doesn't do well enough on her SAT, then what? Was also told that if a child is on an EAP, they can take the FSA and not do well on it, or maybe can just sign in only, not sure. but was said for those on an AIP, I'm sorry, to ask ESE for some sort of letter to bypass it all and still be allowed to graduate. Don't
Yes.
fully understand that part. Can you
I
please
totally
touch?
get it. I know what
Got it?
she's
Okay.
asking because
Okay,
I
great.
went through this.
Sorry, you can save me
No,
saying all
I
this.
totally get what she's saying. So here's the deal. My son, again, ESE, did not take an FSA in
Mhm.
10th grade, and we banked on the SAT, which he did. He passed. He passed the SAT and English portion, which is what he needed to graduate. But what you are right. I did not even know this. And believe me, I read the law. And I walked in and we were sitting in the IEP meeting and I said, she's like, well, look, he did. He never took an FSA, but oh yeah, he passed the FSA. And I said, yeah, isn't that great? She goes, oh yeah. She goes, but she goes, even if he wouldn't have, she goes, we would have signed a waiver saying that he should graduate based on his grades. So it is definitely something that they can do if they have an IEP. I don't know about regular ed students. I really don't know. So I can't answer that, but I can answer for the IEP kids. When she said that to me, I wanted to leap across the table because I thought, really? We went through all this angst when there was a way based on his grades. My son carried a 4.0. I'm not going to lie. He was a great student in regular classes and he got a scholarship. So when everybody tells you that can't happen if they're not taking advanced placement, don't listen to them. That's not true. Colleges look at these kids just like they look at all kids. And so there's an IEP, they definitely can write a waiver for your child to graduate. And you just have to, that's when you might need an advocate who knows the ins and outs, who could go in there with you if they push back on that. But that was one of those stunning moments for me, that I almost fell out of my chair because I thought, we put this kid through this whole thing when you could have just written him a letter, really?
Right.
So, I will say, if they say, I don't know if it's true, the ACT math is easier than the SAT math, and but the SAT reading was, and my son's issue was in processing speed, but he did great. So, I mean, he didn't, ace it by any man, but he passed it. So, and he would have passed it even now since they raised the score. So that was good. So,
Right. We just got the document for the promotion for elementary.
good.
Unfortunately, it's a PDF, Janet. So I will try to send it to you via email. It's not a shareable document. I'm going to see if I could add it to our follow-up email that we send the day after this, or I could convert it into a shareable document somehow. But we already have it. I want to really thank the teacher who sent it to me. She's also another great advocate in our community. But we're getting into the end of the community meeting. I wanted to just give people the opportunity to voice their opinion or to ask questions. Just make sure that you keep it short. We have around less than 12 minutes to go over that. So if you want to participate, please raise your hand on the little emoji on the bottom where it says reaction. You could raise your hand. And if you are not really technical savvy at this point after a year of Zoom, it's okay. We understand. You could actually tell me on the chat that you want to speak up and we will let you unmute yourself. But if there is nobody else that wanted to speak or come up with questions, then we could just kind of give a couple of announcements that I have for the community tonight and then move on to celebrate Rosemary as it's her birthday. So she has a big meeting through Zoom. Through Zoom. We'll be posting the recording of Broward Facebook. Yes, Carol. I will make sure that I share it, and I hope that the administrators let me share that. Anyone else has any questions, any comments? If you have any comments or questions, keep it to less than a minute. That will be great. We have a question. My child is still pending evaluation for a 504 and he will want to opt her out. She is in third grade. What are your opinions? Options, I'm sorry.
I would tell you, if she doesn't get her 504 before that FSA, keep her home, because that's what ended up happening with my son. What happened was we had all the psychological testing done. You're gonna love this story. We should have sued the school board and we didn't. But and I was at the school every day. I was a volunteer every day. I was there every single day. And I would ask the guidance counselor, what's going on with Connor's IEP? Oh, I sent it. Well, we come to find out he never turned it in. It was sitting on this corner of his desk the day before FCAT was going to be taken. And so he didn't get his extra time. So I would not, if they do not have that 504 in place with the accommodations your daughter needs, I would not do it, because that is going to test their disability, not their ability. That's just my feeling, because that's what happened to my son. He didn't get his extra time. The night before, the teacher was calling me crying. Everybody was upset because they knew Connor wouldn't get extra time. And yeah, he didn't get extra time. And everyone was like, well, we don't know what happened. Well, come to find out, he never turned any of the paperwork in. Wow. So if your child definitely needs accommodations, you want them before they take any of these tests. If you are going to let them take them, you want all the accommodations that child deserves. So if you don't have that 504 in place, I would not send the child in. I would not have them take it, but that's just me. So.
Yeah. Well, I just got the shareable link for the documents. I'm going to put it here. I'm sorry. I was listening, but I was working. I like to multitask. So I'm just getting the link. I'm sending it out to the whole community so everyone could actually access the PDF with the elementary requirements. So Jane, here you go. That's your document. It was revised in October last year, so I think it's pretty updated. Let me see. Oh, it's there. I share it only with one person. Let me just share it again. Oh, I think somebody shared it already. Oh, got it. Okay, we got it. There is many ways that we could share it. There's a couple of documents out there. Okay. Anyone else has any questions? Just want to make sure we go over any questions people might have or any comments. Lisette, and if you open your camera, that would be great.
There you go.
You can. Lisette, you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Wait,
Hear you now.
let me see. Can you see me?
Yes. I see you.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
Good.
I was the one who was asking a question about with 10th grade, with
Yes.
10th grader. And I know you mentioned, because that was something I had heard in reference to the whole waiver, but I was unsure with that. Now, does that mean that the student has to sit for the FSA and basically, just minimally participate and then look to do, to ask for this waiver? Or can I just do what I've been doing for the past, X amount of years? Connor
never took an FSA, and they would have offered him that waiver. He never took one. So he had grades. He had classes and grades, and that's what they were basing it on. So, I mean, at that time, he did go in and he would sign in and then just put his head down and not do anything or whatever. I think he said he would scroll to the end and hit submit, and then he'd put his head down. But he never took one. I mean, he never had a score for one, and they were, and yeah, they had his class grades. So there was no denying, that he was a good student. So what were they going to do? Deny, that was but I didn't know that. And I studied the law, and I was, talking to legislators, and I'm like, really, how do I not know this? And how is it that everybody in this office who sees me, I'd answered phones and guidance for 7 years at Douglas. No one told me that.
I just found out myself, and I was kind of stunned. I was like, wait, what?
Right? Me too. I literally was like, what? You my son? And we we're flipping out for months about that, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I also as well have a 3rd grader, which is, of course, I had to have one of each, the 3rd grade and the 10th grader. But with my 3rd grader, I didn't do this with my 10th grader at the time because she was in a different school. So it wasn't until when she switched over to the charter, she's in the charter school system, is where, you know, she was introduced to the whole FCATs and FSA and so forth. But with him, this will be my first go around with dealing with this with third grade. I know that they have been doing keystones within the classroom.
That's right.
And I kind of figured that they, you know, I didn't know if that was just part of, you know, what they do automatically, or if it was because they're already, you know, setting themselves up for many people probably not showing up. And that's what my plan was just to not have him go at all, and just take the absent.
I think the keys to, like I said, if they don't, they have all that information. That's what we've been talking about in our public ed advocacy groups. Like, they have all the data. They've been making teachers collect this data all year long, because I kind of feel like they knew that parents, either they were going to keep their kids home, or, you know, who could predict what this pandemic was going to do, or, you know, what the federal government was going to decide. So they had enough data on each child to make those recommendations. So I think those are plenty. They probably do iReady too. They have all this data on these kids.
Yes.
You know.
So one last question. Thank you, Lisette, so much
Thank
for
you so
your
much.
participation.
Sure. Good luck.
All right. Have a good one.
And the other part is there is a question, I don't know if you answered already, about accessing the information after the school year ends. So for example, if I want to gather all the information and work from my kids, but it happens that the teacher deleted everything from Canvas and now I don't have anything to prove the work of my son or my daughter. What options do we have as parents?
I mean, the school, like I think Trudy said, their job is to keep all that information as well. So they should have, I mean, and you obviously would have report cards at this point for first quarter, second quarter, almost third quarter. So, you know, those are, you know, your thing. You know, I know they'll always say report cards don't mean, no, report cards mean something, because that's a document that, you know, is supposed to tell your child's progress. So if it's not, you know, representative, then they're lying to you. So you do have the report card, and they should have all those assessments. In fact, I would start asking the teachers or the school, I'd like to see, you know, information on my, you know, the scores for my, I don't know what they do now. I don't know in elementary school if you're able to see those scores on your, whatever they,
It's called the, oh my God, now it's,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
We check grades all the time and like become like crazy, you know? So, you know, if you can check those scores, but if they're not up, those keystones are up there, I would ask, I'm like, how is my child doing on this?
Advisor, in the advisor page,
right?
All the grades are there.
Exactly. Interms and midterms should be sent. And if they're not sending those, telling you there's a problem for your child, that's, you know, how can they, you know.
One last question before we go into public announcements.
Pinnacle, right?
Pinnacle. Yeah.
56-year-old brain. I don't retain it anymore.
What is the time frame for you? Some of the parents were asking, what is the time frame for 504s? How long they will take?
That is really school to school, how efficient your guidance counselor is on getting that stuff approved and moved through. Like I said, mine, I kept asking and they kept saying, oh, it's happening. But if it's not there for that FSA and you know that your child needs accommodations, I would not have them take the test, because they will use that test as a punishment. You know, they will. And that is my biggest thing. There is no research. I'm just telling everybody, there's no research really to suggest that kids who don't read by third grade are going to be failures in life. That was arbitrarily made up by Jeb Bush in 1998. And it's become this, like, you know, set in stone, and it is not true. So the fact that this is the year that they will hold kids back is, I don't know, there's so much research on the negative impacts of retention on children, especially boys of color, you know, what that leads to. And that was really why I just would not let my son be retained. And you know, I have a parent who was retained in kindergarten and didn't know that until maybe 10 years ago. And when she told me, she said, and that's why I've never felt, you know, confident. No matter how well I do in life, I always think I'm a failure. So I I am not a fan of retention. I taught for 11 years. I retained one student at the request of the parent. Otherwise, for me, it was about supporting those kids and getting them caught up. Get them support. Do not retain them. It's just so awful for them. It's almost like a death. I mean, it's one of those, like, the 5 top things that you can do to people that will just, and that's why I'm not a fan of the retention at all.
Right.
So
So we are going to be right on time. We're gonna wrap up. I want to thank a couple of people who are here in the meeting,
Yes.
Rod Velez and Jessica Valenzuela, who have really critical in putting all these events together. So thank you, Rod, and thank you, Jessica, for joining tonight. Um, we just had a 45, actually 50 minutes of a breakdown since you are in 3rd grade, how you do this, the opt-out. If you are after 3rd grade, what is the process? If you're in 10th grade and the different scenarios, we walk through them. I think this was really informative. I want to personally thank Rosemarie on her birthday to be here with us and share her knowledge. A couple of announcements I posted in my personal page, a video around the volunteer hours or the service hours. Some parents, I don't know if you guys know, our kids are not required to do the service hours this time around to graduate from high school. Please make sure that you are, of course, maybe engaging your son or daughter, your kiddos into doing some volunteer hours with many organizations out there locally, but they're not required to fulfill all the 30 hours. Make sure that if your kid or it's actually going into the Bright Futures Scholarship, those have not been waived. So make sure that they complete the hours they need to in order to graduate. What we heard from the school board last time was that they are going to send emails to students that are on track to get the scholarship, meeting Bright Futures, to be ready and make sure that they don't just stop doing their volunteer hours because they're going to need them in order to get their scholarship. Second announcement, really quick before we wrap up. We just heard today, and I've been, again, putting a couple of videos out there. First was that we got the 50 and over plus K-12 supported staff will be getting the vaccines. Yesterday, we heard from President Biden that was supposed to be open to everyone. And then this morning, or yesterday actually afternoon, CVS opened up a couple of places here in Florida, specifically one in El Dorado, Miami, where people from all over ages, any status could go and get their vaccinations. And now today, this afternoon, the governor finally decided that everyone, all the educators are part of this priority list. And so if you are an educator or if you're support staff and you work for Broward County Public Schools or for Miami-Dade Public Schools, make sure that you go into CVS or you get information through your city or county to find the places to go get vaccinated. It looks like the majority of these vaccine types are the Johnson & Johnson. So just go get your shot. Many people have been here in this. A lot of people have been vaccinated already. I know a couple of people who have got their first shot already. So we ask for it, we push, we advocate, we send emails, we show up into meetings, we put some public comments, and things move forward. So the invitation for everyone, it's to keep pushing. We need, in our upcoming elections and these local elections, I believe that us as parents need to mobilize more than ever. There's a lot of things that are happening. We need to mobilize. So I invite you to do that. Again, it's 8:04, 1 minute before we go. Rosemarie, happy birthday. I want to leave you with the closing remarks. You want to send a message to our parents.
I've been at this a really long time, and I get very tired. I'm going to be a little emotional, but I get tired. I get tired of the fight. I get tired of these people in Tallahassee who aren't teachers, who have no connection with real children, who don't understand what teaching and education is about and how important public education is our communities, to our neighborhoods, to our society. And so I know this is hard for people, but y'all make me want to keep going, because today I was about ready to give up, and now I feel I got to keep doing this because there's more kids to help. Because I don't want kids to suffer like my son did, and I want kids to succeed in the system, and I'd really like to see these tests go away, but there you go. But if any of you have any questions, I put my email in the chat. Feel free to send me emails. I can answer at any time. And if I don't know the answer, I know the people who do. So, or find me on Facebook. It's Rosemarie Bates/Jensen. And you can message me there, or Opt-Out Broward. I administrate the group, so I'm always answering questions there. So good luck.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
25.
Exactly.
Take it easy, everyone. Have a good night. Gracias a todos los que se conectaron. Buenas noches. Bye bye, guys.